Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'll be sharing with you my breakdown of Nio Q4 earnings. In the first part of this video, I'll be sharing with you a quick highlight on the numbers and figures of Nio's quarterly earnings. And in the second part of the video, I'll be diving deeper into Nio's quarterly report. Alright, so let's break down Nio Q4 earnings. The first thing that we'll take a look at is Nio deliveries for Q4. In Q4 of 2020, Nio managed to deliver 17,353 vehicles in total. And if we were to break these numbers down, in Q4 of 2020, Nio managed to deliver 4,873 ES8 vehicles, and for its ES6 vehicles, it managed to deliver 7,574. And finally, for its EC6, it managed to deliver 4,906 vehicles. These numbers alone doesn't tell us anything. If we were to make sense of these numbers, we have to compare them. If we were to do a comparison for Nio vehicle deliveries, in Q4 of 2019, Nio managed to deliver 8,224 vehicles in total. Contrast this in Q4 of 2020, Nio managed to deliver 17,353 vehicles in total. On a year-over-year basis, Nio managed to deliver more than 2 times the vehicles in Q4 of 2020 compared to Q4 of 2019. So we are seeing some impressive growth numbers over here. And for the year, in 2019, Nio managed to deliver a total of 20,565 vehicles. And if we compare this to 2020, Nio managed to deliver 43,728 vehicles in total. That's also more than a 2 times increase in Nio's total vehicle deliveries for the year of 2020 compared to 2019. If we did this comparison, Nio vehicle deliveries for the year 2020, specifically for Q4, was impressive. And if we take a look at Nio's gross margin, in Q4 of 2019, Nio managed a gross margin of negative 8.9%. But in Q4 of 2020, Nio managed to achieve a gross margin of 17.2%. From a negative gross margin percentage to a positive gross margin percentage, this was a huge improvement for Nio. And that's another positive note to take away from Nio's Q4 earnings. And even though Nio is still making a net loss in Q4 of 2020, its net loss in Q4 of 2020 was at $212.8 million. The number itself is not great because Nio is still making a net loss. But if we compare Nio's numbers to Q4 of 2019, Nio managed to reduce its net loss by 51.5%. So while the absolute number by itself is not great, and there's still room for improvement for Nio, the fact that Nio managed to reduce its net loss by more than 50% within a year shows that the company is on track. Furthermore, if we take a look at other electric vehicle companies, many of them are also not making money just yet. And for those companies that are already making some money, those electric vehicle companies took a while to turn a profit. Okay, so these are the quick highlights on the numbers and figures for Nio's quarterly results. For the next part of the video, we'll take a look at Nio's Q4 earnings report. This is Nio's 4th quarter and full year 2020 financial results. For the full year of 2020, Nio managed to achieve a total revenue of $2,491.6 million. And that is equivalent to about $2.5 billion US dollars. And Nio's full year deliveries for the ES8, ES6 and the EC6 were 43,728 vehicles. With those numbers, we are able to calculate Nio's average revenue per vehicle for the year of 2020. So to calculate that, we take Nio's total revenue for the year divided by the total deliveries that Nio managed to deliver in 2020. Nio's average revenue per vehicle for 2020 is $56,979. Let's take a look at Nio's average revenue per vehicle in 2019. Nio's total revenue for 2019 is $1,124 million. So that's around $1.1 billion US dollars. And we see over here, Nio managed to deliver a total of 20,565 vehicles in 2019. If we take Nio's total revenue for 2019 divided by the total vehicle deliveries in the same year, we will arrive at Nio's average revenue per vehicle in 2019, which is $54,655. From 2019 to 2020, Nio managed to increase its average revenue per vehicle from $54,655 to $56,979. And this is good news for Nio and for us as investors in Nio, because Nio is able to generate more money per vehicle. And if you were to compare Nio's vehicle deliveries in Q4 of 2020 against its vehicle deliveries in Q4 of 2019, the year-on-year growth was 211%. So that's a massive increase in Nio's vehicle deliveries for the quarter year-on-year. The next thing we'll take a look at is Nio's gross profit. Nio's gross profit for the 4th quarter of 2020 is $175 million US dollars. And if we were to compare it against the 4th quarter of 2019, in Q4 of 2019, Nio made a gross loss of 253.8 million renminbi. So from a loss of 253.8 million renminbi to a positive gross profit of 1,141.9 million renminbi, that's a massive improvement in the gross profit for Nio. And if we were to see, gross margin was 17.2% in the 4th quarter of 2020 compared with negative 8.9% in the fourth quarter of 2019. Nio is turning around its gross profit and gross profit margin. And I think that the management team in Nio really deserves some praise for this result. From a negative 8.9% gross profit margin to a positive gross profit margin of 17.2%, all just within a year, that's really impressive. Nio's loss from operation was $142.7 million in the fourth quarter of 2020, and this represents a decrease of 67% from the fourth quarter of 2019. And if we were to take a look at the net loss for the fourth quarter of 2020 was $212.8 million. And this represented a decrease of 51.5% from the fourth quarter of 2019. So taking a look at these numbers, Nio has managed to reduce its expenses by quite a fair bit. And this is good news for the company and for us as investors in Nio, because this means that Nio is on track in turning a profit for its business. And for net loss per ordinary share for both basic and diluted shares, we see a decline of 62.6% year over year. So while Nio is still making a net loss on its operations, we are seeing Nio taking a huge step in reducing its expenses and reducing its losses. This particular recent developments caught my attention. It is the follow-on offering. To summarize it simply, follow-on offering is the issuance of shares after the company's initial public offering. So in a follow-on offering, the company is issuing more shares. And one possible reason why companies might do a follow-on offering is because they might need to raise capital. That is not the part that caught my attention. What caught my attention is that a typical follow-on offering can dilute the existing shares of its shareholders. So this is something that I'll be paying attention to and doing more research on it. The next thing that we'll see is Nio CEO comments. I highlighted some of the speech that William Lee, Nio CEO, made with regards to Nio's future. He mentioned that with steadily increasing deliveries, stable average selling price, improving material costs and manufacturing efficiency, our vehicle margin reached 17.2% in the fourth quarter. This was what I highlighted earlier on. Nio has not only managed to increase its vehicle deliveries, but it has also managed to drive down its costs. And some of the reasons behind the decrease in cost for Nio was highlighted by William Lee. He mentions about the improving material costs and manufacturing efficiency. And he mentions that moving forward, Nio will continue to innovate, and he is confident about the company's long-term competitiveness and will continue to make decisive and efficient investments in products, core technologies, and user service. In other words, Nio is committed to continue its investment in its R&D. For a technology company, that's a very good thing to hear from the CEO, because R&D is what keeps a tech company competitive. If you take a look at the cost of sales for Nio, cost of sales in the fourth quarter of 2020 was $842.8 million, and that represented an increase of 77.3% from the fourth quarter of 2019. So at first glance, that might be something to worry about, because there's an increase in the cost of sales in the fourth quarter of 2020 compared to the fourth quarter of 2019. However, this increase in the expense or cost of sale is mainly due because of the increase of delivery volume. So as Nio delivers more vehicles, naturally the cost of sales will increase. Variable cost for a company that produces vehicles is typically quite high. So this increase in the cost of sales for Nio is nothing much to worry about, because Nio is delivering more vehicles. And just to highlight, even though there's an increase in the cost of sales, we see that the gross margin for Nio in the fourth quarter of 2020 was 17.2%, compared with a negative 8.9% in the fourth quarter of 2019. Taking a look at some of Nio's operating expenses, its research and development expenses in the fourth quarter of 2020 was $127.1 million, representing a decrease of 19.2% from the fourth quarter of 2019. So Nio actually mentioned that its R&D expenses has decreased in the fourth quarter of 2020 compared to the fourth quarter of 2019. And this is also something that I'm paying attention to. For a tech company, which Nio is, we want to see a company investing in its R&D. This decrease in R&D expenses is something to take a look at. Nio gave a reason for the decrease in R&D. The company mentions that the decrease in R&D expenses over the fourth quarter of 2019 was caused by the decrease of R&D expenses related to the EC6, which came to mass production in September 2020, and the company's overall cost-saving efforts and the improved operational efficiency in R&D functions. So according to the company, one of the reasons why we are seeing a decrease in R&D expenses for Nio in the fourth quarter of 2020 is because of the mass production of its EC6. This probably means in Q4 of 2019, the company spent a large chunk of its R&D expenses on its EC6 model. So after the model came out, the company managed to reduce its R&D expenses related to the EC6. But another reason Nio gave for the decrease in its R&D expenses for Q4 of 2020 was because of the company's overall cost-saving efforts and the improved operational efficiency in R&D functions. Generally, for a tech company, we want to see the company setting aside a budget for its R&D expense, because R&D is what keeps a tech company competitive. A decrease in the R&D expense is something to pay attention to for Nio. And if you were to take a look at Nio's loss from operations, its loss from operations in the fourth quarter of 2020 was $142.7 million US dollars, and that represented a decrease of 67% from the fourth quarter of 2019. This is also another positive news from Nio's Q4 earnings. Nio has managed to bring down its loss from operations in the fourth quarter of 2020 by 67% against the fourth quarter of 2019. And for Nio's net loss in the fourth quarter of 2020, it was at $212.8 million US dollars, representing a decrease of 51.5% from the fourth quarter of 2019. Right, so generally for a company, we want to see the company increasing its revenue. So in this case for Nio, on top of its revenue, we also want to see Nio's vehicle deliveries increasing. And also at the same time, we want to see a company decreasing its expenses. With an increasing revenue and decreasing expenses, the company is able to generate more profits. And if we were to take a look at Nio's quarter 4 results, Nio has managed to achieve just that. We see Nio increasing its total revenue and vehicle deliveries, and also at the same time, Nio has managed to drive down its expenses. Nio's fourth quarter result has been generally quite good. There are certainly some things to pay attention to, such as Nio follow-on offering and its decreasing R&D expenses. But generally, the numbers and figures for Nio's quarter 4 results has been good. And for the company's first quarter of 2021 guidance, the company expects deliveries of vehicles to be anywhere between 20,000 and 20,500 vehicles. And this represents an increase of approximately 421% to 434% from the same quarter of 2020, and an increase of approximately 15% to 18% from the fourth quarter of 2020. That is what the company forecasts for the first quarter of 2021, and for us as investors to review the company in the next quarter. This is my breakdown for Nio's Q4 earnings. If you have liked and learned something from this video, smash that like button because it will really help the channel grow and allow me to produce more content such as this. And if you are new to this channel and haven't already subscribed, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more videos about Nio, the stock market, and investing and trading. I'll see you in those other videos. To your financial success.